Welcome to the Savvy Podcasting for Entrepreneurs podcast, a place for podcasters to learn what's actually working in the world of podcasting and how to use their podcast to generate consistent leads in their business. I'm your host, Jenny, and I'm so excited you're here.
Hey, Savvies, welcome back to another episode of the podcast. In this episode, I am talking about how to optimize your podcast page or website. So let's get into the episode. So I'm not saying that you need a separate website for your podcast because that's absolutely not true at all. If you want one, great. If you don't, that's fine. But you certainly need at least a podcast page to house all of your episodes and your show notes and all that good stuff. So now that we've established that fact, let's talk about what your podcast page needs on it. Okay, so first, having a header at the top of your page is really important because it sets the tone for the rest of the page and lets people know exactly what they're looking at. Usually this will be some sort of variation of your podcast name and a photo of you or a nicely styled stock photo. Underneath or next to the logo and photo, depending on how you have it laid out, you can include logos and links to your podcast on the top 4 podcast platforms like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Stitcher, so that people that land on this page can easily subscribe to your show if they're not already, and then you give them the 4 different places so they can pick where they want to listen. Then I also like to have a section with all the recent episode titles and their photos. And then when you click on each individual episode, it leads to that particular episode's blog post. So you can have it set up where all of your episodes are on one page, or even just display like your most 5 to 7 recent episodes and have them be able to click back to see older ones. I think it's better when you have less because it's not as overwhelming. When you just have like the 5 to 7, it helps people be able to find things easier because it's not just like a wall of images and text. It's not as overwhelming. I also think a search bar is also really good to have so that people can type in the topic that they're trying to find and then be able to find exactly what they're looking for without having to like scroll for a million years or or just like really search too hard. So a search bar is also a great idea. And at the bottom of the page, I like to include some links, like a place to apply to be a guest on the podcast if you have guests, potentially even like a contact form if you'd rather receive inquiries through there instead of like a guest form. Just little things like that. Any freebies that you offer that are relative to your episodes, you can put down there. And more places to subscribe if you want. But yeah, that's kind of the gist of what needs to be on your podcast page. And make sure that your show notes, whenever you click through to them, they are optimized, that they have, links to things that you mentioned in the episode, couple bullet points at the very minimum. If you can do full out like blog post style show notes, that's even better. But yeah, make sure these are optimized because if people are getting on your website and looking around, you want to make sure this looks nice and it's easy to follow for potential new subscribers. So tell me, I'd love to know, do you have a landing page or even a whole website dedicated to your podcast? Let me know over on Instagram. My handle is at Podcasting for Entrepreneurs. It's always so great to hear from you guys. But yeah, if you want to check out the show notes for this episode, you can go to savvypodcastingforentrepreneurs.com, and I will see you in the next episode.
If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe to the podcast on your favorite podcast player like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or Stitcher, and leave a review. You can find us at savvypodcastingforentrepreneurs.com and on Facebook at Savvy Podcasting for Entrepreneurs and Instagram at Savvy Podcasting. Make sure to join our free Facebook community for podcasters by going to savvypodcastingforentrepreneurs.com/community and join in on the exclusive community just for Savvy Podcasting for Entrepreneurs listeners. I'll see you there.